Good evening. My name is John Hanson. I'm the Vice President of Energy Production and Marketing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the resource options that came out of the studies that we've done. First Rob talked a little bit about the models and the options that were put together. There was a base case and then 15 different options, and you'll see them on the panels over there. And from that, we did an online survey and focus groups. Chris talked about that, qualitative and quantitative studies. At the end of the day, 5 different resource options rose to the surface. And all 5 resource options capture the community's preferences for affordability, renewable features, reductions in emissions, conventional emissions and greenhouse gases, as well as customer energy efficiency programs. And so now I'm going to talk about the 5 different resource options. And you'll notice we have them color-coded, all 5. And I'm going to talk a little bit first on how the slides are laid out. First, you have the top orange piece. That's the schedule of the changes that will be made at the different generating stations. The green box talks about the % reductions in emissions. The blue box talks about the generation makeup or the generation diversity. And this is based on our retail sales, our retail load. And the last lower orange box talks about the forecasted average increase in monthly bill for our customer owners. And so in this case, I'll just use this as an example. The range is in the $0 to $9, and the other 3 boxes don't apply in this case. Now I will note that in the cases we'll show here, the resource options, they're typically in the lower range. Some of the other options you'll note on the panels are in the higher range. They have a higher cost impact on your monthly bills. So with that, let's start out with the yellow resource option. Talking about the schedule, North Omaha Station, we would look at refueling units 1 through 3 to gas in the year 2016. Also in the year 2016, we would retrofit units 4 and 5 with basic emissions controls, and then refuel units 4 and 5 to gas in the year 2023. And let me talk about a couple things there first. When we go to refuel units 1 through 3, there is an existing gas supply that could allow us to do that with a low-cost capital injection at that point. When we go to refuel 4 and 5 on natural gas, and then we have the whole station on natural gas, that would require a capital cost outlay with a higher pressure natural gas line at that point. Also, to talk about retrofit of units 4 and 5 and Nebraska City with the basic emissions controls. What that means is we would inject dry sorbent injection, which is the sodium bicarbonate, which would capture SO2, and also inject activated carbon, which would control our mercury emissions. And so the 2016 date, you'll see that, that's a key date in there, and that's when we have to meet what we call the MATS regulation, which is the Mercury Air Toxic Standard that is put out there, and we will be compliant with that in the year 2016. And so with those changes, you can see here the % reduction of emissions. And let me explain that briefly here. That's NOx, nitrous oxides, sulfuric oxides is the next one. Hg is mercury, and then CO2 is carbon dioxide. And here you can see the amount of reduction that we get is pretty good, mainly due to the changes to gas at North Omaha Station. The generation diversity, you've heard a little bit about it already. In 2018, we indicate the increases in renewables with the wind purchases we've made at Grand Prairie and Prairie Breeze added in there. And then, so it's split into thirds. About 30% is coal, and then 30% is nuclear, roughly, and 30% renewable. As you go out in the future years, you'll see a greater proportion of natural gas due to the gas changes at North Omaha Station mainly, and more use of our peaking stations. And as I stated earlier, the range forecasted increase in your bill, monthly bill, would be $0 to $9. The next case we label as orange, and here you see North Omaha Station would retrofit units 1 through 5 with basic emissions controls. At Nebraska City Station, we would retrofit Unit 1 as well with basic emissions controls. And here you don't get quite as much reduction in emissions as you do from the yellow case, and that's due to this continued use of coal, which you see again on the generation diversity in the future years, a little higher use of coal, a little less use of gas. Renewable stays about the same, and the nuclear stays about the same on these. I might also note here that the wind or the renewable proportion decreases in the outlying years, the future years. Part of that is due to our load growth. It's a lesser percentage than as you go out in the future years. And also what we're indicating here is some of the expirations of some of our wind contracts that are typically 20-year purchase power agreements. And again, this resource option is in the $0 to $9 range on your monthly bill. This case is the red resource option, and you'll note in the next three, red is somewhat, I'll call it a base case here, and then the pink and the blue are very similar, and I'll note the changes as we go forward. But in the red case here, we retire units 1 through 3 at North Omaha Station in 2016. We replace those units with a natural gas-fired peaking plant or a combustion turbine. In 2016 also, we would retrofit units 4 and 5 with the basic emissions controls, as well as Nebraska City 1 in 2016. And here you get percent reduction in emissions that fit somewhere between the the yellow and the orange case. And some of this is because you've retired units 1 through 3 and replaced it with natural gas. In the generation diversity, again, you're split in thirds in 2018, and as you go in the future years, gas takes a more predominant role in the generation mix. The forecasted average increase in monthly bills for this option is again in the $0 to $9 range. Probably if you had more granularity there, this would be increased a little bit higher due to the increased capital costs with a natural gas peaking unit. And here is our pink case. I mentioned earlier that this is very similar to red. So if you look at the schedule first in the top orange here, everything in North Omaha is the same. Nebraska City is the same with the retrofitting of Unit 1 with basic emissions controls. The difference here is in 2018, what we add is a reduction in load of 100 megawatts due to customer participation in energy efficiency programs. And the percent reduction in emissions is very similar, almost identical to the red case, as well as the generation diversity mix. And again, the impact on the monthly bill is in the $0 to $9 range. In the blue case, again, similar to red and pink, the change here is at the bottom on the schedule on the top orange, where in 2018, we increased the power generated by solar sources for a net gain of 100 megawatts in this case. And so you'll see the impact of that with a greater reduction in emissions because you are using a renewable source here. So you have an increase in emissions reductions slightly. The generation diversity mix looks very similar to red and pink. However, your renewable portion does grow by a couple percentage points as you, in each of the years shown here. In the forecasted average increase in the monthly bill for this option is in the $10 to $19 range, and primarily that's due to the increased costs with solar added in there. And at this point, I will turn it back over to Tim Burke.
Thanks, John.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Nice job.
You bet.
Great, thank you very much, and thanks for all the presenters, Rob, Chris, and John. We're going to begin shortly here the moderated Q&A portion, so if you have the opportunity to put your questions and give them to one of the moderators, we'll certainly be in a position for the next hour or so to be able to entertain any questions that you may have. But I do want to talk just about a couple of things. As we kind of started this presentation, about kind of the process that we've been through in phase 1 and phase 2, and here we are in the public forum to kind of give this feedback to you about what we heard and about what we've collected in the market research process. One of the things became very apparent to us is the alignment around OPPD's mission, around affordable rates, around reliability, and around environmental sensitivity. I do want to go back to one of the 5 slides that John showed. I think one of the things around that environmental sensitivity piece on the CO2, the carbon dioxide piece, most of those reductions that you saw were typically in the single-digit numbers. But in our base case that we look at by adding Prairie Breeze and Grand Prairie Wind, we are already seeing about a 20-some% reduction in our carbon dioxide emissions based on the adding of those wind portfolios. So there are significant kind of changes already in the base case that you don't necessarily see in these portfolios, but was discussed obviously as we went through the market research and the qualitative research process. So what we really found really important is the dovetailing of really the OPPD mission and kind of what customers were telling us, and that was really refreshing to us. It was kind of really important. So obviously we are in this 3rd phase process. We heard some things that we are taking certainly under consideration as we begin to think about what that recommendation may be to the OPPD board. And we'll be presenting this information with some of the feedback and some of the questions and some of the perspectives that we get from all of you in this process. I will share with you this presentation will be on oppdlistens.com. Someone told me as early as this evening. I'm not sure how they do that, but obviously somebody more technical than me can do that. The other thing that we will continue to have open is the oppdlistens.com for any comments or questions or perspectives that you may have. I would also say that in the event we are not able to answer every single card that we get, if you could, if it doesn't get asked, get to one of the moderators. We'll make sure we get your contact information and match it up with a card, because we do want to follow back up and answer any question that you may have. So I do want to thank you very much for your attendance. Thanks for your participation. It's good to see the friendly faces that kind of have come with us on this journey on our inaugural stakeholder process here at OPPD and our listening tour.